What is up? We are back. We just finished up talking about current events with China, and we're talking about current events with China, Israel, and the United States, and then we're talking about Dershowitz, and then we did a. This is the prior stream, and then we also talked about IoT surveillance state in kind of that history. We went over the time. We're trying to keep the videos like a smaller block, and so we don't want to, like some of these videos are like a week long, and we're trying to get away from that. But, and it's working slowly, and we're keeping on topic, right? So we just had the intermission. Now we're having the next one. You can go pee, Drew. You can go pee anytime you want. You just pee straight up into the ceiling if you want. I won't stop you. Okay. So the where we started to get into was the we were talking about accusation of Dershowitz being Mossad, right? And it's not that I disagree with you. It's that, I don't know because I'm not in the Mossad, so how would I know? But what I think is that I think that all these things they obfuscate the scale of reality, right? Like it's not that you should be afraid of Dershowitz having interest with Israel over interest in the United States and like being a spy or being Mossad. It's that you should be more concerned from a American citizen, like if you're an American citizen, you should be concerned more about the extreme amount of infiltration of both direct is like obvious Israeli favoritism in the United States government by both non-Jews and Jews, but particularly Israeli Jews that are in the United States government, and from secular diasporic Jews in the private sector. You know what I mean? That are composing this entire clown show. Well, so Mossad is, that's like a very specific kind of like colloquial name that isn't really, it's probably not accurate. I'm sure that there are other names for it now, and it's usually, and Mossad is also typically you're talking about military, you're talking about like direct action shit. You're not talking, they're doing, they do have a history of spying, but that's not how it works. The way that spies work is that you have to have the parallel construction narrative of why they're there doing something. So those can either be really cheesy and obvious and conspicuous, or they can be super fucking smart, having directors and shit, art and shit, right? Where it's just so gray area that there's just no way, you could practically just LARP that, your spy operation is like an art project basically, and then people be like, oh really, oh wow. And there's no so now the most significant, have you guys seen the Salon article on the DEA infiltration pre 9/11? Are you guys familiar with that, or what? Anybody know about that? DEA, the infiltration of the probing of DEA pre 9/11. Okay. Can somebody please do a crawl for just type in Salon DEA Israelis, and you should come up with a PDF link, I think, or it'll be an article or something like that with a PDF. So anyway, well, the story is that here, I'll see if I can find it too. So before 9/11, this would have been like in the end of the 90s, or maybe in the year 2000. You had like a series of probes that took place into the DEA and I think the FBI also, and they were like, this is where we're talking about like Israeli art students, right? So DEA Israeli Salon article. That's what I'm looking for. Oh, Israeli art student mystery. This would have been 2002 is when this article was written. I'm actually surprised that this is still up on Salon. This is from the author of this is Christopher Ketchum, like Ketcham. So it's January 2001. In January 2001, the security branch of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency began to receive a number of peculiar reports from DEA field offices all across the country. The reports basically said that young Israelis claiming to be art students and offering artwork for sale have been attempting to penetrate DEA offices for over a year. So you're looking at like from the period of 2000 to 2001, you had like hundreds of incidents of Israeli art students like going into now this is what's crazy about this shit is that there should be through the Salon article you can actually look up like the report, right? Because what happened was like nobody in DEA brass wanted to touch it, and so you had like the high-ranking field agents compiled the report on their own basically, and then sent it out as like a letter like up the chain of command, and they made sure to publish it so they couldn't get like buried. And then this would have happened before 9/11, right? So I don't know any of these guys. Like I don't know anybody in the DEA. It's like one of the agencies that I don't know anybody from. So I have no idea if these guys are even alive or what now. But I'd imagine that they're pretty like, you know, freaked out. they're probably like changed people after this, like after 9/11 and shit, you know. But you know, they were like, you know, it was like shit. Like they said that. So in the report, in the report, you had, you know, it was typically like they describe the way that they describe them almost makes them sound like they're like kind of like stoner personalities. So you have like stoner personality, which would be like the classical like let your guard down type of persona where it's like I'm not a threat, you know. And so they said that they would basically be like Israeli. They describe them as like Israeli girls that are like very attractive and wearing like dump shorts. You know what I mean? Like Daisy Dukes and shit. And then with being like accompanied by like college-age males that look really like spacey and shit. You know, like airhead, going around and like selling artwork. And the artwork that they're selling, like when they describe it, it seems like it's probably just like bought in like a flea market, and they're just carrying it around. And then which is really funny. It's kind of funny, like reading the descriptions and stuff where they're like very attractive young Israeli. Like you just imagine like the DEA agent like typing this shit up and like thinking about his boner or whatever the fuck he's trying to like. I don't know. Anyway, the fucking so these cats were like, and this is not one crew. This is like multiple crews all over the United States. Like it's, I don't know how many states it is. It probably says in the Salon article how many states it is. It's more than like 10, you know. But what's really interesting about it is not only like kind of the MO of it, but you know, you had like they were accessing like black sites and shit. Not a black site, not like a black site, but like a fucking undercover. They were accessing like undercover, you know, like hideouts and shit like that. You know, like the big ones, the ones that stayed in place and didn't like, you know, weren't like completely temporary overnight safe houses, but just places that were like intermediate safe houses for, you know, moving people across the country for DEA operations and shit. stuff that's like not public. You know, like the only way that you could find these locations is if you had like access to uh, you know protected, restricted documents, right? Like in being pre 2001, it's really interesting because you didn't have in the government. Now I'm not familiar with the DEA, but if they're like anybody else, they were in there like, especially like law enforcement was still in a transitional period from like paper to computer back then. So it's really strange that they were able to like access the locations of these like secret places for the DEA. But they were also going to like public offices and shit, right? Like they were going all kinds of places. They were also going to DEA agents' houses. So like there's a DEA agent that had them come directly to his house, which, because he was an undercover DEA agent, he didn't, it was kind of like a secret, like where he lived, right? So it's very unusual. Anyway, that should give you an idea on the espionage side, like how prevalent this is. Because nowadays, this stuff is like nobody's even going to say anything about it. You know what I mean? You guys get what I'm talking about? So yeah. So like when I was in the military, when they would give like security briefings and shit, like in TRADOC, they'd always talk about Israeli infiltration and shit, like all the time. Like it was just, but they would always say it like they would always like round it about. Like they'd be like, yeah, they weren't even like talking about China back then. They would just, but they would talk about like all the conventional stuff, like Russia and shit like that, and they'd be like, there's a bunch of Israelis, coming in here, watch out for Israelis. They just like throw that in at the end, like not wanting to be like, it's not like I'm denying the Holocaust here, okay? We just, got some Israelis, coming in here, So the my point is that it's a very prevalent thing, and it's way bigger than you think, like way more prevalent than you think. And so when you're accusing somebody as being Mossad, it's like, number one, they could not be Mossad. That could be incorrect. And number two, like they probably are working directly for the Israeli government, and it's not limited to them. It's like fucking tons of fucking people in the fucking government. I mean, half the shit. I mean, you guys don't understand that like President Trump did a commercial for Benjamin Netanyahu, and it's like, well, it's like you fucking dropped acid and then like went to an interdimensional portal into a separate timeline. It's like Donald Trump like sitting in front of a camera with Hebrew subtitles, like promoting the election of Benjamin Netanyahu. Like, you guys understand that, right? Mossad's so secret they don't even know they're fucking Mossad, bro. Fucking war by deception, from the people waging the war, like on them. So, yeah, but Q runs them all. Q lives in he's got like a throne over Benjamin Netanyahu's office. Yeah, send it to me. Can you send it to my email, Zanzer? He predicted I would say that. I don't know. Okay, so then you've got the entire side of like, you have the entire, like, if you guys didn't notice it, like 80% of your presidential candidates are Jews for this year, if you didn't know that. So, it's all the way, like this coincidence is all the way up into the fucking executive office now. You know what I mean? So, when you're going around saying that like somebody's Mossad, it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I know the sky's blue, You were in Lebanon when Israel invaded in 06? You think that Trump is spiritually Jewish? I don't think that he has. I think my judgment, which could be wrong, is that Trump's spirituality is at like the like not a very good place. Yeah, I'm not like I don't really get that either. I mean, I guess like the Israeli Jews are like really fond of Trump and talk. They always talk like even like esoteric Kabbalistic Jews and shit, like Orthodox Jews, will like speak favorably of Trump, and I don't understand it because to me he's like very despicable. Like he's not an honorable person, and he's not. He doesn't like reflect God, so I don't understand like what the infatuation is, or if they're just like is the case that they're so materialistic that it obfuscates their sight and they can't like ascertain reality. Because I'm talking about like I've seen like shores and stuff where it's like Orthodox Jews talking favorably to other Orthodox Jews in like 40% of it is Yiddish. So it's not like an American audience is watching. So there's no reason to like patronize Trump just to gain American favor. So I don't understand why they're like so fucking on his ass. They think he's Cyrus? Really? Well, I read articles all the time where they talk about, of course there's like Pompeo, calling him Esther, modern day Queen Esther, and then there's people I've heard people describe him as like Esau Mashiach. I've heard people describe him as fucking like, but he can't build a third temple. He can't build a temple. You can't have Trump build the temple. He's not Yosef. He's not from the line of Yosef. I can tell you that. Yeah, I mean Trump did a Benjamin Netanyahu election commercial, and then the one that's even more insane. It's like, so Trump's is like an LSD trip in like an airport watching the TV in the corner. Pence did one, and Pence is like DMT like while you're getting surgery or something, and then you're watching like the EKG monitor, and it just turns into a fucking Pence commercial. Like that's how intense it is, because you just can't even believe. I mean, it's just like Pence's commercial is so over the top patronizing. Like it's not like if I was a Jew, I would be offended by the commercial because I'd just be like, wow, he's just like lying through his teeth. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's ridiculous. Have you guys seen that? Okay, yeah, I guess I asked for that. So, Abbott Fisher asked, "What's your opinion on LSD and DMT?" So, my opinion on drugs is that they render useless layers of your brain or your mind, rather, your perception, that cover what is already there, right? Like so I'm not saying that like they're a useful tool. I'm saying that they're a something unnecessary. That's what I'm saying. So Trump's commercial is crazy. Pence commercials is crazy. And then you've got these cats like Chuck Schumer, who is like, never done a good job in the government and is like pretty much the enemy of everybody that is not the central bank. And Schumer will just like, Schumer fucking invokes the entire, he'll fucking talk about Hashem in speeches and shit. And like, it's just a little bit, it's like complaining, like when you complain about Dershowitz being a Mossad agent, it's like complaining about like a single drop of water on a window when there's like a fucking waterfall going on in the corner. You know what I'm saying? Like you get what I'm talking about here? Yeah. So, where were we even go? We were just talking about Dershowitz, right? Okay. So we talked about like that the Israeli art students is really interesting. So I can tell you, here we go. I can give you a personal story. You ready? So this is like my first like kind of run-in with like Israeli government and shit in the United States. So like after like post service, I was hanging out with the guy who was he was like a private military contractor. He's private service too, but he was into like international private military contracting. So like he and like all the way on the other side of the world, which I'm not gonna see. You can just use your imagination, but like the exact opposite side that we are on, and doing shit over there, and like so like he was and then he was going back to school, and like I wasn't going to school. We just knew each other, and then he got a flyer. He got handed a flyer on the campus for the Zionist Organization of America was having like a function at the campus, and then he was like intrigued by it. So he brought me the flyer and he was like, "Hey, you want to go look at this?" And I was like, I don't know what I should have my fucking head examined, but I was like, yeah, okay, let's go see what this is. Like, what's the deal with this? So like we go in here and it is like, the old school auditorium seating arrangements where you have like wooden chairs that go up like staggered, and then like a very small room. Like we're talking like 150 attendance seats max, right? Like a small college class. And it's filled up, but bleachers type shit, right? But this is the with no air conditioning. So like, I mean, you can imagine how stinky it was in there. But anyway, so like I didn't really know what to expect, but I was thinking like in my head, I was thinking like, I'm going to go into like a dark, like it's going to look like the stadium where, Tim Cook came out and is like, and here's the new iPhone, and everyone's like, I think it's like that. So I'm thinking I'm gonna be like hiding in it, like I'm just gonna be like sitting in the shadows, just like watching, and like nobody's gonna give a fuck. I go into this motherfucker, and it is like completely filled up with Jews, like nothing but Jews, in a little teeny, and like we walk in, and then so that's the first thing I noticed, right? Second thing I noticed is that other than the like people that have coordinated this through the campus, through the Chabad office, all the people in there are like 20 years old. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like thinking of like the movie Old School and shit, or like, shit like that, where it's like the college students in the film are like, actually their actors are like 40 years old, 50 years old, but they're like college students. So like my mind, I'm thinking that's like what I'm gonna walk into, right? Like I'm gonna go in there and just like be, it's fun. I can just sit there and like walk, see what's up, just check it out. Like nothing nefarious, nothing nefarious at all. Just like just literally like piqued my interest because I thought it was weird that Zionist Organization of America was like doing a function in my, in my AO. That's it. That's all I was doing. Like, so I walk in there and then I realize that like I am, other than the old people that are, coordinating this fucking thing, everybody in there is like 20, and I do not look like I'm fucking 20 years old. I thought maybe I did. I do not. So, and neither does my private military contractor friend. Like we look like fucking like bad fucking news, you know what I mean? So we're like, which we don't really think about that, right? But that's the way that it is. So like as soon as we can go in there, it's like every fucking eyeball is on us, you know what I mean? And it is like, and it's like there was just half a second where I was like, okay, let's just leave. But I didn't do it, right? Like I was like, okay, it'd be better to just, play it cool, and we'll just like sit down, like it's cool. So we like sit down in there, and well, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about? Like to a like especially like a foreign national, like all soft and stuff. Like they're gonna see us, and they're just gonna think that we're there to like, they're gonna think that we're like fucking rogue rogue CIA. You get that? Like they know the CIA, so they're like, wait, who are these guys? Like they're gonna think that we're like bad news, right? So, like, and that's exactly what happened. So they fucking pull out. So we like sit down, all like immediately they start pulling out cell phone cameras and will not fucking take them off of us. So they're like, and there's no, it's like you can tell that they're extremely nervous because I can like see their sweat and stuff. Like I can see like, so it's getting very uncomfortable. And the guy who's doing the presentation is like a, he's like in the Israeli cabinet. So this is like a, which I didn't even know, right? But like, he like introduces himself to the audience after I'm in there for like 2 minutes, So then we're like, wait, this is like Israeli government in here, You know what I mean? And then the people that are doing the function start pulling out fucking cell phones and shit. And then they start like, will not take them off of me or my buddy. And I'm just sitting there like, trying to enjoy the Zoa presentation, and they just won't stop. And it's like you can tell that they're nervous as fuck. And so they're trying to make it look like they're taking pictures of like the audience for like a Facebook page or something, like, look at all the people here. But they're so bad at it and they take so long to like fuck with the camera and stuff and won't stop, that it like gives away that they're like obviously trying to like identify us, right? Like they're trying to take pictures of us to figure out who the fuck we are and identify us. So like, this is really uncomfortable. To make it even worse, then it goes into like the guy that's giving the presentation. I think he's like, I ended up looking him up, and he was like employee at, I think he's in the executive cabinet, or maybe it's like some kind of embassy or something for Israel, but I can't remember. But he was the guy that was giving the presentation. So he starts doing a slideshow, like a PowerPoint. And the PowerPoint, like, you realize, like, at first you're kind of like, okay, did you actually make a presentation or what? And then about like 3 minutes into it, you realize that like this entire thing is fake. Like, this is just the cover of why the person has diplomatic access to like travel to the United States to like be there. So he's doing something else, and then he is like making a PowerPoint like on the plane trip to like, as the cover for the presentation. And the reason that all these people are so fucking nervous is because they think that like we know and we're there to like bust them or something, which is not the fucking case, right? Like we're just like there, but because of, like, the paranoia, it just made this whole thing so fucking uncomfortable, right? And then the guy giving the no, you can't. And then the guy the faculty at the campus are like really sweating hard. And then the guy that's doing the presentation starts getting through his PowerPoint, and then he realizes that his like PowerPoint like doesn't really make a whole lot. Like, it makes sense if your audience is just like 20-year-old Jewish kids that are at the campus and like are just gonna be like, yeah, like, woo, then it makes sense. If you're actually like trying to pay attention to this shit, then it doesn't make, it's really obvious, right? So he's like realizing this while he's going through the PowerPoint, and then he starts like fucking stuttering and I mean, it was like terrible, because we were like, I'm like sitting there and I'm like, it's just like snowballing, and you can feel it, because he's like glancing around and shit. He starts getting like rapid eye movement and like looking at us a lot, and then we're just like, we just want to leave, like, just let us, stop looking at us, like, we don't even give a fuck, we're gonna go, okay? But we can't get up because it's like dead silent, and it's a teeny ass room with like 100 people in it, right? And so like they fucking get through this fucking thing, and then they start taking pictures of me while I'm leaving, like following me out and taking pictures and shit. And so like at this point, I get like the feeling of like threat, you know what I mean? Which is not, that's not what I'm doing, but that's, I'm literally just walking in there, like I might as well have gone to like a fucking Transformer movie, you know what I mean? And they fucking took it to the next level with like trying to fucking pull like image biometrics on me and shit. So so then this is where it gets interesting, okay? So then I talked to some Fed buddies to let them know about this. And the reason why is it's actually not because I'm narking, right? The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm concerned that I have like stumbled into a fucking Israeli like infiltration operation, and that they think that I know more than I know, and that they're gonna like, do something to me. So like, I want to put an on paper record of like me being dumb, so that then they're just like, oh, this guy doesn't know shit, right? So like that's the purpose of it, right? It's to try to like diffuse it, right? So I do that, and then like 24 hours later, one of the guys from this place comes into my place of business. very almost got shot. Like I almost shot him if it wouldn't have been, like just out of like fear that like I was gonna get shot or something. I mean, once my conscious brain took over, I'm like, not, obviously I'm not gonna shoot him, but OMG, bro. Like just because I basically have like nightmares of like, getting fucking waterboarded by these guys that were taking pictures with the cameras, and it's like burned into my brain for 24 hours. And then like, I'm like working somewhere and like, it's like way the fuck out of the way. Like it's not even, there's no reason for this person to be there. And then they just like walk in and I'm just like, oh, what is this guy doing here? Right? Now I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So now I'm like calling up Fedbro again, and I'm like, bro, like what the fuck, guy, and then I'm not gonna say more about it than that, but you can fucking use your imagination. Anyway, if you're fucking Israeli Mossad op in the United States, like, don't fuck with me, please. I'm not fucking with you. Don't fuck with me. That's the fucking that is the fucking story. That is the story. If you don't get it, I'm not gonna explain it. You can go back and watch it. I'm not gonna explain it, but what I'm trying to say is that like nobody gives a fuck. The people who should be giving a fuck about this shit do not give a fuck. What I'm saying is that here's a bigger implication. What I will say, the Chabad organization is running a fucking Israeli, like Israeli nationals for Israeli interests through the United States under the cover of the university system all over the United States. I can tell you that. I can tell you that the feds are aware of it and not stopping it. Like 100% for sure. Like, I've talked to multiple feds about it. Not even trying to get them in trouble. Just like talking to them about it. Just like you know about this, And they fucking know all about it, and they don't even give a fuck. Like they're not gonna stop it. You know what I mean? So that's like the depth of infiltration that you have in the United States. So why the fuck this person? Wait, what is this? So why the fuck did your friend get a flyer if that would make them so nervous? Because so the people that were handing out flyers were like the 20-year-old kids that were there, like the campus Jews that are just like kids that are Jews, that are at campus, and they don't. So if you don't know this, like Zionist Organization of America has been like declared in the past like an espionage operation, but like officially, and then it got removed under, I don't know. Could somebody look up Zionist Organization of America and look up their, I think even Wikipedia has a history on this, and tell me the date on who removed them from the espionage list. Who are you talking? Zalpop, you talking to me? Who are you talking about? When you guys have side conversations, this shit gets really confusing. By the way, that's not related to the topic. Okay. I was just trying to track what's going. I was just making sure I wasn't missing engagement here with the. How do you get hired at Mossad? Jump off a bridge. No worries. Don't really jump off a bridge, Abdul. I love you. Don't do that. Sounds like you. Touche, Abdul. That's why you're my mod, bro. Okay. All right. So, all right. So that was like a fucking long ass reroute into following up on yesterday. So yesterday we talked about Noahideism and its relation to like LGBTQ social engineering, right? Like we discussed that, and then we talked about the significance and the symbolism in the LGBT flag being designed by Gilbert Baker in the 70s and getting introduced under the you know, like people are familiar. Like if you told somebody off the street like the LGBTQ flag is a universal flag, then they'll be like, yep, and they'll fucking 100% understand. If you call it the Noahide flag, then they're gonna be like, you're like, what? And then if you explain to them Noahide, they'd be like, you are racist, sir, and a bad person, and that is not what this flag is. You know what I mean? So that is, but that is what's going on. If you didn't know that, and there was like a question yesterday that I never got a chance to answer, and that was from the Ducker Rainbow. Somebody asked me. I think the question was like, so does Noahide law introduction cause expulsion? And that wasn't a very specific question, so I'm going to take the liberty of interpreting it. So how I interpret that question is that you're asking, whoever asked that, was asking if the expulsion of Jews, like the future expulsion of Jews from the United States, is caused by like people realizing like Noahide. And the answer is no. Like that is not. So these are separate things, right? So like Noahidism, in the timeline, like, so we have to almost go like multi-dimensional here. So like in the timeline where Noahidism goes through and takes place, we're talking like post-Messianic warrior. So like all the countries have already had their waves split. Like everybody's fucking caps are fucking flipped at this point, and everybody's just like, you know, and then everybody's trying to recover, and then you get universal like world government, right? And then after that you get Noahidism, right? The expulsion of Jews comes from you know, it's from prophecy. It's particularly like Ezekiel and Isaiah, and it's very clear that is like, you know, it's viewed by a lot of Jews view it as like possible prophecy. It's very clear when you read it that like this is, you know, I mean, it perfectly describes the situation now. I'll just say that, right? So like up to and including like ascribing the emotional causation of like what causes the goyim to expel the Jews, and like in the United States in the future, right? That's how fucking accurate it is. It goes into like Ezekiel goes into talking about he says that like it's whatever the Hebrew word is for like food, but it's not like food. It's like services, like offered through business, you know. But it's like the particular word they use is for food. Like if you had a business serving food, like dishes, like prepared dishes that were like a meal, like a product meal, like here's a Happy Meal or whatever. That's like, it's like the Hebrew equivalent of that. So it could be used for describing a food that's a product, or it could be used to describe like anything analogous to that, like products, like branding, like brands and shit like that. Ezekiel's prophecy goes all the way into like prescribing that as being like becoming like detestable to people, you know what I mean? And then that causing like you know, causing the wrath of God against the Jews, right? And kicking through the goyim, and the goyim being sent, and like the most ruthless and wicked of the goyim like being sent, and God, you know, turning his face away and like not, you know, like having no pity, right? And like permitting it to happen. And this is the and the you know, it's like you should go in and just read Ezekiel. It should be around well, here we can look it up. It should be, I think it's around Ezekiel 20, I believe. The Isaiah one, you just have to read Isaiah and find it. I'm not familiar with that, but the point is that the you know, and that's not so if you talk to some Jews about, like I've talked to Orthodox Jews, like I've talked to Chabad Jews about that prophecy, and they're really offended when you talk to them about it. Like they're like, like that. I think last time I did that, that was when, in a respectful way, like even more respectful than I'm talking now, right? But the that's when I started getting like evil eye accusations. You know what I mean? And I'm literally just like trying to reference the prophecy, and get their opinion on it. And so I don't know, I don't know if this is like, it appears to be something that like Jews are like not aware of somehow. But there is like substantial prophecy about the Jews getting, or maybe they are all aware of it and they're just really, secret Jews and they don't, give that, they're really good actors, maybe. I don't know. I didn't get that impression. So, I can't, so Zapov says that I can't Esther crooked. Is that what you're saying? Look at these trolls in here. We got so many fucking trolls. First we had, this is the same guy from yesterday that was Carl Casarga. I don't even know what we're talking about now. And I have no idea who these, are you guys talking to each other? Or are you talking to me? Yeah, there's some, so there's somebody there. If you guys aren't aware of this, for anybody that's watching this, so basically we have like somebody there's at least one person that is like actively coming into all of these streams and like attempting to disrupt the streams by like trying to associate basically just like twisting the shit that we're saying into like drama. And it's I can promise you that Carl doesn't give a fuck, and neither do I. Like whatever Carl's got going on has nothing to do with me, and vice versa. So I mean, I think it's kind of fun. I don't really care, but you look like an idiot, and just because if you change your name to Dugan, it's not gonna help you hide, like because I can recognize your fucking writing. Okay, so. And now I wanted to go back. I wanted to go back to Zobpov. He was talking to me, but I didn't catch what he was talking about. So, Zobpov, could you give me a brief but specific, like whatever you wanted me to see in a message, like in a single message, so I can understand what you wanted to say? If that's what if you want me to respond to you. That's really creative. Good job. Well, it's probably most likely I would guess my intuition would tell me that this is like a young Jewish person that doesn't understand what's going on here, and they think that I'm like anti-Jewish. I sounded very skeptical. How did you pick that up? Skeptical. What do you mean? What I'm skeptical about is if the tomb got burned. That's what I'm skeptical about. I'm not, I'm not alive, a long time ago, right? I'm alive now, and Esther is not. So. Yeah, this would be Gunslingers. So okay, I guess I should explain this. So we're gonna get back on topic after this. We're gonna go back into the flowing stream. We've had like a interruption, and then I've been trying. We've got a viewer that has been watching these streams, and I wanted to, he had a question for me, so I wanted to address his question. But the thing that we're talking about is we had in a previous stream we discussed Queen Esther and Mordecai's tomb getting burned in Iran, and like in a political consideration, right? Like that's how we were discussing it. But in order to do that, because we have an American audience primarily, Western audience, and a lot of them will not be familiar with Esther. And so I went into an explanation of Esther, and then the gentleman in here was like, he perceived that like I was disrespectful in the way that I talked about Esther, which is not true. But I mean, from my side, I guess that what he sees is his sight, right? Like, and this is what I'm trying to. I've kind of tried to communicate this phenomenon to you guys to help you understand the world better, but I've done a poor job of explaining it, and so I don't think that it's retained in any way. I haven't really tried to tackle it head on. It's kind of a separate topic, Okay, so so that's an explanation of what happened here. I'm gonna continue on. Where were we? We were talking about infiltration into the United States by Israeli nationals. We were talking about my own experience with the ZOA. Did anybody find out when the ZOA was taken off the espionage list? Just for data point. So we talked about the addressing the question yesterday, that was if Noahide law was the cause of like future expulsion. Oh, no worries. No, you're not. It's not. You weren't disrupting. It's the guy that's like coming in here, and I mean, you see the comments. It's not you. I appreciate anybody that's sincerely, like, even joking. Like, I don't even care if people come in here and fuck around. I don't even care if there's a troll. I'm just, this is just reality. This is just what's happening, right? In the chat. Oh, okay. And then I was wondering, so here's another thing for anybody that's watching this that wants to see, I talked about the kind of like the progression of how Noahide is being introduced into the legal system, which should be through Chabad, primarily. And, but it's expanding, like like it originally was very close to Chabad, and it's expanded into like more mainstream Judaism. And but you still see, like, in the Senate, when they're getting the prayers and they're referencing Noahide law, that's typically Chabad rabbis. I've seen rabbis that aren't associated with Chabad, or like Reform Judaism sects giving prayer in the Senate, and they will not reference Noahide typically. At least I've never seen one. But if you're watching this, if you want to go do a like a C-SPAN search or YouTube search, and you could use those key terms, and you can find a video and post it in here. So it'd be like Noahide law, Senate, or if you went to C-SPAN, you'd do something like Chabad, Chabad prayer, or like Senate, Chabad Senate, would probably be like two keywords, and that would pull up the videos, and then you could put them in here for people to see that don't understand what I'm talking about. So we kind of like Chabad Lubavitchers are like, they're pretty much formed around like Rabbi Schneerson, right? And Rabbi Schneerson is like an Eastern European Orthodox Jew, and Chabad is really focused on like messianic transition of the world. That's like it seems that pretty much most of their attention is focused on that. And then they've had they have close ties with governments pretty much everywhere. So like and they also have offices and representation pretty much everywhere in the world. So like they are in Russia, they have Putin's ear, they have Trump's ear, they're pretty prevalent. And and like there were times in the Schneerson Library that was in whatever, I can't remember the exact city, but it was in a territory that was held by, under the jurisdiction of Russia, and they worked with the United States State Department to recover the library. So that gives you an idea of like how much sway they have, right, in terms of in diplomatic clout. But and I won't speak. I don't know how. Like, I'm not familiar with how they interface in terms of with the Israeli government, so I couldn't really speak on that. But if anybody has a reference to that or something that would give people more an idea of like where that fits in, that would be helpful. So other shit. So there was another thing that was like, it was somebody had a comment in the last stream where we went into specificity of Noahide, where they attributed Noahide to being a fringe topic, like the Noahide law as like a fringe topic. And I felt like I need to revisit this to explain that it's not fringe. There's essentially like sects of Judaism that don't attempt to deal with post-messianic law interpretation, and they focus on just like up to rectification, like up to the pre-messianic transition, because the messianic transition would be like, it's like through divinity. So it's not like, they're not, once it starts, it's like they're not gonna, it's hands off anyway. So they focus on like that, and that's like, that would be like most of your like kind of like lower key Jews look at it that way. There is no interpretation, like there is no, as far as I'm aware, besides Maimonides, work to like define post-messianic law and shit, which is where you get like Noahide concept and like decapitation and stuff. So on one hand, Maimonides, who's known as Rambam to Jews, like if Jews are talking about, they're going to say Rambam. His pre-messianic era writing in Mishnah Torah is like universally accepted practically, right? Like I don't think I've ever read anything that has been like a major disagreement. Like maybe some kind of like semantical, difference of sight or opinion, but nothing like this is wrong. Like I'd never read that. So it is like Maimonides' opinion, at least concerning like pre-messianic halakha and shit, like Jewish law, is universal. And in post-messianic era, he's the only authority that has made any kind of substantial writing on this stuff, as far as I'm aware. And so like when people, if someone like if a Christian considers Noahide law and thinks that it's like a fringe topic, you should understand that it's not, and that it's like there is nothing else to reference other than that interpretation due to like Maimonides' work and being like accepted by rabbinicism, and what's really interesting about it is that like when Maimonides first wrote Mishnah Torah, it was like seen as an assault against rabbinicism, because it took away the ability of rabbis to charge money to interpret Torah and Talmud and shit, because it was like a book that you would get, and then it would assist you in navigating the holy books. And that's like, this is the entire, like the attempt by rabbinicism to censor the Rambam's Mishnah Torah in Spain, like in Holy Roman Empire. That is entirely responsible for snowballing into the Spanish Inquisition. So like if the rabbis hadn't done that, then it's very unlikely that situation would have progressed at least as violently and like intensively compressed in a timeline as it did, in my opinion. Okay, that's how I interpret it, and historically, and that's ironic because, you know, now it's like with rabbinicism embracing Maimonides, like you know, Noahidism and Law of Kings. It's just ironic, right? Because it's a real reflection of human nature of, like, you know, when something's like not in your favor, you resist, but then when it's like in, like personally, right, like as an individual, as like a being, as a body, right, like as a body in physicality, when you're like, you know, people make all kinds of, you know, you can really move mountains when it's in your favor to do so, you know, like people are highly motivated by that, and then they're motivated to resist when it's not, right? It's just like an interesting point. So then somebody sent me an article that it was like a National Geographic article, and I tried to read it before this, but National Geographic was throwing up a like subscribe thing that it didn't have a closeout box, so I couldn't read it. I could only read like a couple sentences at a time. I tried to do it like 3 times to try to like up and like move, you know, see it, and I was like, this, I'm not gonna read this. But the basically the article was from National Geographic, and it claimed that like the Dead Sea Scrolls were like found to be a forgery recently. Did you guys know about this or have any information about that? I don't know. I'd never heard of it, so if that's like a legitimate article, it's really interesting. But just something to throw out there. You may want to go check it out and discern for yourself. I don't, you know, obviously I don't know. I didn't read it, so. And then this is another thing. This is like so somebody sent me like the Protocols of Zion. So like, yeah, please don't lose your job for listening to Dugan streams. Like, get some fucking sleep, you madman. You know, go to work, and, you know, I mean, for now, go to work. Go to work. You can catch up on it later. It'll be up. I'll leave it up. You can watch it at your leisure. So the protocols. So the problem with the protocols is that when you read them, the language that's used in them is very antagonistic language. So it's like, it's not a like, if like, let's take a hypothetical. Let's say that I'm the author of the protocols. If I'm writing that shit for the purpose of what it's supposed to, you know, be a like a mission plan for, a mission statement, like a white paper, basically. Like, you're not going to use that kind of language because it's indicative of like painting a picture, you know, and it's really sloppy. You know what I mean? Like, if it was like you would, it's so sloppy that I would think that, you know, whoever wrote it would have done a better job. I'll just put it that way. To me, that's really apparent when I read it, and I'm not out here like fucking like going soft on the Jews, okay? Like, I'm just letting individuals be accountable, you know, where I see it, as I see it, you know, which could be wrong. Like, I can make mistakes. But I'm definitely like not gonna leave out, you know, if somebody, you know, I'm not gonna like not talk about Finney and Mandela, like Jews being responsible for like genetic fucking eugenics and shit like that, like killing babies, and, you know, I'm not gonna like, you know, I'm gonna put attention to where it makes sense to put attention. In the protocols, it's, to me, when I read it, it's like it would be a very interesting thing to bring up and talk about in here, but I don't think that's authentic, right? Like it would just it would add a lot of spice to these if I could talk, because we could do a whole episode on the protocols, but I don't believe that's authentic. I believe that is a you think it's a fake? I think it's a fake overplay of their hand. A fake overplay of their hand to disregard it all. Okay, the Dead Sea Scrolls were significant because we'll get back to that. The Dead Sea Scrolls were significant. I got asked this by Gunslinger. Gunslinger asked me like, what's significant about the Dead Sea Scrolls? So this goes back to yesterday where we were I brought up Dead Sea Scrolls because the concept yesterday we talked about phenomenon the phenomenon in Judaism of like machine. And the reason why we brought that up is because in Revelations and like Christianity and in the conception, like the way that people think about Jesus Christ, the like as a Messiah, which is like the same, that's the same word as like, the Jews say Mashiach, so it's pronounced a little bit different, but it's the same, like that's where Messiah derives from, right? So like the Messiah concept for Jesus is very different than the Jewish concept, right? And that's why like we started to talk about it, because when you start talking about Mashiach, like it was like through an email exchange, it was very clear to me that a Christian viewer believed, because it's like colloquially understood, that there's just like one Davidic, there's like a Mashiach for Jews, and that's just one, and that's not actually the case. Like not even in a like, I'm not even talking about like fringe ideas. I'm saying that like, there's now, if you talk to Jews, like regular Jews that aren't like read up on this shit, then they might not be familiar with the second Mashiach. But it's a very old concept, and the like, there's a like a Jew, I guess he'd be considered a sage, right? What is it, Vilna Goan, like Goan? Is that correct? Any Jews in here, help me out? Anyway, in like I don't know, probably the 1600s or 1700s possibly, that's when you get like a lot of and in the Talmud, in like what is it? It's like a tractate, like 52b or something, I can't remember. There's a like, they discuss the concept of like Mashiach ben Yosef, right? And then you get like in the 1700s and 1600s, you get a lot of discussion of Mashiach ben Yosef. But then through the Dead Sea Scrolls that are discovered, like in after, pretty much after like settlements start, you get the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and those are like much older, and then it like just adds another time dimension to the concept, to just to kind of like give an understanding of why it's a vague concept, and that's a lot of Jews don't even know about it, but that it's like a known concept that's been accepted for a long time. And even so the interesting thing about the Nat Geo article is that if that was true, that they were like the Dead Sea Scrolls are not authentic, then that would like eliminate that entire trace of timeline, like chronology, right, of the concept. And that's why I brought that up, because somebody sent me an email about it. Right. Yeah, it depends on what you think is credible. Yeah, so exactly. So like, you guys really need to like understand that when we're doing this, like, I'm just I'm just talking about these topics. So like, I'm not sometimes it kind of seems like when people are listening to shit, that they think that like, what I'm talking about is like, I'm telling them like, and now you believe this, and now you believe this, and like, if that's what you're getting out of this, then you're gonna get pretty confused, I think. So anyway, it doesn't really matter if the Dead Sea Scrolls are like inauthentic, because it's in the Tanakh. But they don't say the word Mashiach ben Yosef. You can derive the identity of Mashiach ben Yosef as a as a separate Mashiach from Mashiach ben David through the Tanakh by like by both prophecy and some of the more substantial books by descriptions of blood relation, and having keywords and descriptions that are mutually exclusive of what would be identifiable to the Mashiach ben Mashiach ben David, rather. So 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 it's important. So like the reason that we even brought this up, so like we're getting comments in here now that are like talk about revelations, right? So like the reason that we're not talking about Christianity is, in depth, like to the same depth, is because you guys already know it, and because like you don't have like the Holy Roman Empire is not like running shit, you know what I mean? So it's not like, this is, we're talking about in a perspective and context of how this affects you, and it's easy to get into a place of like wanting to see something that's comfortable and familiar, and like reinforces like where you guys have already been at, like psychologically and mentally, right? And like that's how we got here. So like I'm the point of telling you all this shit is so that you understand something that you're never gonna look at. Like you're not gonna read it, most of you, and so like I'm trying to make you aware of things, of how, like the direction that this whole ball of wax is going, and that's like the purpose of discussing this stuff. You know what I mean? So if you're like, like whatever your consideration is, like everybody has their own sight and their own life and prerogative, you know what I mean? And so like obviously there are people in here that are like very antagonistic to like even hearing this stuff, which is fine. And like if that was the case for your prerogative, then you should have interest in understanding the Mashiach ben Yosef concept, because it, like, for example, if you're thinking of it like the Mashiach is Antichrist, right? Like if that's the same thing. Well, number one, like I would want to know if that's like actually the case or not by like analyzing it and figuring out. And I think that there's a possibility that Antichrist is one of the Mashiach. It would be more in line with like the Mashiach ben David than it would the Mashiach ben Yosef. And so it's significant because the Mashiach ben Yosef in the domain that we're discussing it is the first Mashiach. So like if you let's say you're like a Christian and you're like Antichrist comes first, like I know that, right? Because of Revelation, right? So then like your perspective is going to be like, as soon as Mashiach pops up, that's like evil, you gotta kill him. You know what I mean? And what I'm trying to tell you is that Mashiach ben Yosef comes before Mashiach ben David. And Mashiach ben David would be the one that's enforcing Noahide law. Mashiach ben Yosef is more like, he's like not accepted, or like he's rejected by Jews. And he's there to fix, he's there to like but this is my interpretation from the books. Mashiach ben Yosef is there to facilitate the purge process of Jews. Like in a guardianship type way. Do you see what I'm saying? And so it's like he's like a character that is always like at odds with Jews, and so and they don't accept him. And then they, like, from my interpretation of what I read in prophecy, like they kill Mashiach ben Yosef. You know what I mean? And then like after that in prophecy, then Mashiach ben David comes, and Mashiach ben David is like that's like the ruler in Israel. and then additionally, you should understand that there's four Mashiachs, like esoterically, like in terms of the Jews, like common conception. You have like most Jews will know about Mashiach ben David, which is like the baseline, and then like your like particularly like your Kabbalistic Jews will know about Mashiach ben Yosef because it has a lot of shit to do with the construction of like Kabbalah as a like a map, and then you're gonna have like a lot of like Mashiach ben Yosef is entirely associated with the like Mashiach ben David is entirely concerned with the like the nation Israel being all the tribes after they're there, and the Jews view Mashiach ben David as the like entirely, at least in my perception, they view it entirely as like related to Judah. You know what I mean? Like them. You know what I mean? Like they don't. There's. I mean, of course they know about the lost tribes, but it's not like they don't know who they are, and so it's not really like that's not, and it's not for them to find them. Like it's not their job to find them. So they're not, like when they conceptualize Mashiach ben David, it's in a relationship to them because it's a Davidic bloodline, right? But Mashiach ben Yosef is like, like Mashiach ben David could come immediately if the world was right for like godly presence, right? But like, I mean, you can take like fucking 2 looks around you and know that like that's not the case, right? You get what I'm saying? So like this is an important concept to understand, right? Even as a Christian, right? Because in Christianity, there are all kinds of sects of Christianity. Like you have to understand that like Israel, so like Israel, the word Israel, like the nation state of Israel is the name of like Jacob, right? Like Jacob's name changes to Israel, and then Jacob has sons. And out of the sons, like Yehuda is like the tribe of Judah, right? Like that's where Judah comes from. And then the other tribes that are lost are like out of that, right? And so like what you have to understand is that like in Christianity, there are Christians that, associate, there are Christians, there are Mormons, there are like lots of people who associate themselves with the lost tribes. And so like, it's important for you to understand as a Christian, like if you're a Christian viewer that's antagonistic to this shit that I'm saying, like it's in your interest to understand, because if you're like just gonna go out there and canoe the Mashiach, you should understand that like the first Mashiach that's gonna come is gonna be the fucking, is not gonna be like who you think the Antichrist is, and is gonna gather, in the Jewish timeline. I'm saying like in the Jewish timeline with crossover to Christianity, it's a non-Jew. They're not from Judah. It'd be like an Ephraimite, right? Because it's Joseph. It's from the line of Joseph, like Joseph Technicolor Dreamcoat. So this is an Israeli. This is not a Jew. Do you understand what I'm saying? So like if you were going out and you're just gonna canoe Mashiach, like that might not be a Jew. That might be like an Israelite from the lost tribes. So this is why it's like it's important to understand both in like analyzing like future political events, because like we're all aware of the influence that diaspora has on the world, and we're all familiar with the like the direction that all this shit is going right now, like in terms of having a world war. And so because of that, it's like you'd be flying blind as you are, if you don't know this stuff. And this is why I'm trying to tell you this stuff, so you can get a better understanding. What's the best way to learn about all these timelines? It's really hard. You just have to like read a lot. I mean, there's most of the, especially like the like the Mashiach ben Yosef is really difficult to read about. Number one, because like Jews don't want to talk about it because it's like they don't want to put words into, they don't want to like be disrespectful to like prophecy and like divinity by like assuming what's going to happen in the future, because all the stuff that's there is really vague. But when you piece it all together, like if you read enough, then this is where my opinion is formed from, and my opinion is probably a little bit different. Like I highly associate Mashiach ben Yosef with like Isaiah and Ezekiel and Genesis and shit like that, and but particularly with Isaiah and Ezekiel. So David is asking me how Russia connects to Israel. Well, you basically have so the main connection between Russia and Israel would be through after the wall falls, and then there was an earlier time where you had like an exodus, like a controlled exodus through the Bronfmans, right? Who are the Canadian alcohol dynasty, and they have like share in Coca-Cola and Seagram 7 and Crown Royal and shit like that, right? And Prohibition era bootlegging, right? Like all the mafia shit during Prohibition, that's like all associated with Bronfmans. So like Bronfmans, the Bronfmans facilitated probably through trade, but I don't know. I'd imagine there's some kind of reciprocity and trade going on to cause the Soviet Union to allow like a mass movement of Jews into Israel. So you had like one that was early, I think it's like in the 60s, right? And then after the wall falls, that's when you get like a giant exodus of Jews out of Russia. And so that's like the I mean, other than like Bolshevikism, that's the like major connection between the two. And then where Putin comes in would be like, like Putin obviously comes after Gorbachev and the fall of the wall and shit. And I would assume that Putin's like the restructuring of Russia into what it is now had a lot to do with Jews. Does that answer your question? I mean, I couldn't go deeper into it much more because I'm not like incredibly versed on the topic. For the shoes, I mean, I don't know if I mean, Putin is like, I mean, I know he's got really close relationships with like Chabad and stuff, you know what I mean? So I don't know, I don't think that that's like a farce or anything, or like a facade. I think that's like a legitimate, I think he's legitimately like on friendly terms with them. So, you can make it out what you will. Okay, anything else about that topic, or that's okay? That's okay. Anything else? Okay, so and then to wrap this up, right? To wrap this video up, somebody had an interesting question about. Yesterday, had a question about like, is like the emasculation of men in society. So this would be like related to socialization, right? Like we were talking about socialization for the past few videos. So like what's really interesting about that question is that, I would look at it like like emasculization through media and shit is like that's purposeful in a social engineering program, right? But what's really interesting is that, if you're not familiar with this, like if you go to Google Scholar or something like that, and then you look up like if you search the term drop in testosterone, so like what's occurring on the on Earth, in humanity, since they've been able to like test for testosterone, which is like fairly recent, they're seeing intergenerational drop in testosterone. So they're actually like they are having to like gimp they're having to gimp they're having to weight they have to reweight the like the span of the range of testosterone like every year or so, right? So it's like constantly changing, and the reason for that is because the level of testosterone is dropping in humanity, which is interesting. And like and this is like something that's occurring across like at least like most of humanity, right? Like it's not like isolated to like a geographic area or anything. Some populations that they test are like less in less of a decline than others, but like they're like testing people like Papua New Guinea and shit, and it's like it's pretty much the case like all over the world. And yeah, and there's lots of theories on it, like that it could be like from BPA, plastic contamination of like water and food. I mean, there's a lot of things about it, but what I find, like what it makes me think of is like the are you guys familiar with the Russian silver fox experiment, like from the Soviet Union, that's like still going on now? It's like still in operation. Are you guys familiar with this? What's a good way to keep test up? Lift weights, like particularly squat or overhead squat. Okay. So the Russian silver fox experiment is one that began in like while the USSR was around, and it's a very simple experiment. So they took a Russian silver fox population, and then they would they took an initial population, and then they just like whichever fox was the most aggressive out of the litter, they would put in like one bay, and then whichever one was the most docile, they would put in the other bay. And then they just kept on breeding them and kept on doing this. And what happened was that the silver fox that were most aggressive, they were fucking aggressive as fuck, but they look the same. Like they look the same. The only difference is that they're like extremely aggressive. The docile bay, like nowadays, they're getting like all kinds of physical changes in the foxes. So like the foxes, like it starts to turn into a dog, basically, right? So like the tail starts to curl. They start to get like different colors. You start to get like recessive traits showing. Their eyes change color. They get like new color bases. Like they'll get like white and spotted, and they'll get like droopy ears also. Right? And this is like I think about that experiment when I look at like the data for the testosterone drop. Like I see it as like in my opinion, it appears that like because of the like the socialization of society in mass, like all of the world, and like what the people who are doing this consider the advancement in technology, that it automatically selects for docility in relation to selecting people that don't fight, right? You get what I'm saying? I do have dogs. Abdul asked me if I have dogs. I do have dogs. I like dogs. I don't have any cats. I don't really care for cats. I like a wild cat. I have a wild cat around here that is fucking rough. Like I'm talking like First of all, his skull is like way bigger than a normal, like way thicker than a normal cat skull. He's obviously the cat, like the cat that I have around here, it's like a field cat and it lives outside, it like lives like in the trees and shit. And it is like obviously from like a long line of like wild cats, So it's a tabby. It's like a yellow tabby, and its tail is like almost flat, and it's very thick and short, and it's extremely like scared of people. So like even though I see him almost every day, he'll come out here and he'll like eat mice, and he'll pull moles out of the ground, like he'll kill moles, and just like sometimes I'll go out to my barn and there's just fucking dead moles everywhere. But like if I approach it, like if I can't get closer than like maybe like 40 feet, and then he will run this like very fast. Like he's very he's like selected down to be more efficient at what he does, which is like killing mice and moles and running really fast and getting away from people and shit. And then that kind of like brings me into the like evolutionary theory, like evolutionary theory is really like taken as gospel, by science community. And there's really a lot more there. There's it's like I do think it's like a biblical in biblical conception, like particularly in Genesis, the conception of like the image, right? Like the image. To me, that's like the essence of the like actual evolution, right? Like that is like what they're describing are like the mechanics of evolution, which is how evolutionary theory gets developed, is by observing mechanics that are constants, right? And the only thing that I think that like evolution falls in that it doesn't account for more broad, like more it's very narrow. I'll put it that way. It's very narrow. Okay. Yeah, right. Abdullah says idolatry, right? Yeah. So we were discussing the other day. We were discussing the like the conception of like image, right? As it relates to like what is image in man, and this relates back to like I gave an example of it was an analogy of the idea of like a clone, right? And the reason I gave that analogy is because if you imagine a situation where like if you just right now like split like boop and there were two of you, that the point of me giving that analogy was to demonstrate, with a thought experiment, to demonstrate that your actual identity is relative to everything that's around you. So like as soon as like even though you see yourself as you in your perception, like imagine if like exactly you, like not like identical twin or anything like that, not like a science experiment, just imagine like you suddenly split into two people, and now there was like you and then another you, and so the other you had all your memories and all of your entire background inside of them, but then like they were standing there and you're looking at them, right? So like as soon as your clone exists in duplication, you automatically, your identity changes, because if like and we're not even in the clone split idea, don't think of it like he like peels off of you so you're here and then like he's like secondary. This will be confusing. What I'm saying is that like if you could blink an eye and then you open your eye and now there's two of you and there's no distinction of like which chicken came before the egg, right? Like it's not like that. It's like if it could suddenly exist that there were two of you and you have the entire same background and same thought and same heart and everything, right? And this is necessary in this analogy, because it's like the only way to contrast the idea and from something that you know, because everybody knows their own perspective, right? And like what they think about themselves. So that's why it's necessary. So like as soon as the second one exists, now your identity changes, because necessarily your identity, both as yourself and as other people would see. Like if there's an observer there watching, and then boop, and there's two of you, like if the observer doesn't have a notion of like which one was the original, then like they're both you. But time, entropy, like as the seconds, like as soon as you exist, that's like a space and a time. And then you from that moment, you will both continue to grow like into separate people, right? But the identity, what's interesting about it is that the identity of both of both of the clones is relative to each other, right? And so like this is important to understand, because this is how, like, I've given a lot of examples of like contrast, and how contrast resolves everything that we perceive, both in the mental world and the physical world. So like when you're looking at colors or light or anything like that, like anything, when you're touching things, when you're hearing things, that is all rendered by contrast. And it's no different for the mental world. Like for the other worlds that aren't physical, it's no different. So like identity is a entirely mental concept, and what you have to understand is that you don't possess it, right? Like this goes into the rendering, concepts of like what we are, and like metaphysical concepts of what we are, and identity. And people usually think about identity as a possessive trait, like similar to like other things like truth or like honor and things like that. They think of it like a possessive thing. And what what I've been trying to argue is that these are all things that are from another dimension that is within where we are, but that we don't perceive. Like we don't want to perceive it, right? And the reason that we don't want to perceive it is because of the like the way that we built this world. But using the mind, you can perceive it. And so like necessarily, because of the clone analogy, it's necessary that identity is a it's resolved from the contrast between you and every other object in existence, right? So like not even a person, just like everything to a degree. It's more direct when you're talking about a clone, right? Like it's easy to understand when it's a clone. Like when you split into two people, that makes it easy because it's direct. But what you have to understand is that it's actually like you and everything else, every single like grain of sand, every fucking molecule of air, every atom, if you want to use that term, right? The contrast between those things is the only thing that renders the conception of identity. That's like a necessary thing for people to understand in the future. Like when we get beyond this third world war, it's necessary for people to understand this. And I'm trying to think of where we go with this. I don't know. Maybe we should leave off on it for now and come back to it later and do that as like an exclusive topic. What do you think? You guys got any opinion on that? Okay. Duncan's cool with it. Another guy's leaving, so Well, but when okay. Well, now we're not gonna stop. We're gonna at least get to like one more point. So what I'm trying to tell you is that, like, what I'm trying to explain with this concept, which we're not going to be able to go into definitively in this video, but what I'm trying to explain to you is that it's not a perspective. I mean, it is a perspective in the sense that, like, I have a perspective and I can perceive this, but what I'm telling you is that, like, this is the, like, you know, like I gave an example with the color chart of how a person perceives two different colors out of the same color, right? And that is an aspect of contrast. And my point is that, like, the actual senses that we use to see and feel and hear are not actually, they're not really, I mean, they're necessarily not true, right? Because you can prove that, right? So they're not true, but it's perceptually practical, right? Like, it's perceptually practical in the way that we're living, but it's not the case, right? Like, it's not actually true. It's not like the actual thing that's going on here, the nature of reality and existence, right? And so, like, once you can understand this, then it makes it necessary to, like, use the brain to think of, like, how do you determine what's true or not? And in doing so, that's where you derive, like, these kinds of concepts, like understanding contrast and relativity, right? And this is the angle that I'm coming from, trying to explain that identity is no different, because it's not limited to identity. It's like everything, you know. It's everything. It's like, you can pretty much see this in an analysis of anything that you would select that you would analyze. It wouldn't matter if you were looking at like light intensity or light frequency or color or like reflectivity or electricity or it doesn't matter. It's everything. It doesn't matter if you're looking at evolution, like the entire, so like evolutionary theory is a theory, right? Like the way that Darwin comes up with evolutionary theory is to examine things that are between the lines, right? Like you can't actually see evolutionary theory. What he's looking at is he's looking at something that's not physically there and exists in between generations, right? And then he's able to derive constants. And then from the observation, he is drawing like an isolated theory. But what I'm saying is that, like, evolution, right, is it's entirely the same thing as this greater concept, which is like everything. And the way that evolution works, like with the concept of selective pressure, is a mechanic of it's a mechanic of contrast. It's a mechanic of contrasting things. And so, like, this is, like, I don't know if I can get, we would have to get, like, really deep into it, right? And it kind of deserves its own video. But when I'm talking about identity, this is the way that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like you can look at it this way. I'm saying that it is the way that it is because you can observe it everywhere. No, so Abdullah is asking me, how can someone occupy twice as much space in physical world and still be one stream of consciousness in the clone experience? So they're not, so I guess first of all, the clones, like, this isn't like a real, like, obviously this isn't a real thing, right? This is like a mental experiment to give a point, right? So like the consciousness necessarily, like if you split, you're going to have separate consciousness, right? But if you're duplicated, like from the same source, then you're going to have the original memory, right? Because you have to be like, from the moment of duplication, everything before that has to be the same, because you couldn't duplicate and be a baby, right? Or be like a molecule or something like that, because then it's not a duplication, right? So like it's necessary for it to be a duplication in this abstraction. It's necessary for them to be everything up to the moment of duplication prior, right? Everything that hasn't happened yet in the perception of entropy then continues on, and by that you get a contrast of like time against the like the perception and existence in space and time. And the time is like, because as soon as you split, you are like in two different places, because you're not like, if you were staying in the same place, you'd be one, right? You're two. So there's already space, right, just from the get-go. And then as like each second counts, it's like you're looking in different directions, you're like staying in different places. If you move, like now you're like moving away from each other. So the entire experience between the clones from the moment of duplication diverges. And because it diverges, it's necessarily true that it changes both of the identities, and it demonstrates, it fleshes out the realization that the identity is actually a relative rendering, right, between two things, right? And that's how everything works. Like you can't draw a line without having a starting point, right? Like you can't, like, you get what I'm saying? You can't even make a point without having a starting point. You have to have like no point on a piece of paper, and then take a pen and make a point to get like a dot. You have to, for like, if you're drawing a line, you know, I mean, so it goes into everything, right? And this is it's observed everywhere. And so like all the sciences are limited, you know, like limited examinations of this phenomenon, and they don't account for the continuity between them as being like the nature of existence. That's what I'm saying. So that's why science is flawed, and that's why science is boundless, and like they have to make a theory so that they can have like a set point, like a benchmark, and be like, okay, this is the theory. And then humanity, because of the way that our deceit, like the veil of deceit over our perception, we view then the set theory as like that's it, you know, like that's right, that's correct. And what I'm saying is that it's never correct. It's always evolving and changing over time. And so in science, when they make a theory and they say it's good, you know, it's not. It continues to evolve, constantly shifting, and they have to rewrite the theory and evolve it along with their understanding. And that could go with both them being incorrect about something because they assume something, but it could also be as simple as like, you know, what you know about material with a you know, a microscope is different than what you're going to learn about it if you have an electron microscope, right? Like once, you know, it's all an order of magnitude. And so like as technology makes a bridge to further any examination of anything, it further unfolds like the infinite nature of existence. And you know, science continually delves into it in any domain of study. But what they don't acknowledge is the continuity of, like, you know, all of the theories basically being you know, they because humanity attempts to like misidentify themselves and their physicality, and we look at the world and we say like the physical world is it, and my physical body is it, and this is reality. And what I'm saying is that, you know, it's necessarily true, you know, once you examine it intellectually, that's not at all true in any case. And No, what I'm saying is that all of science is an error. Like the perspective of humanity is an error. That's what I'm saying. And uh it's a like it's really obvious when you consider it, you can see it. And the continuity between all of the narrow fields that people examine the world are due to their being stuck in physicality. Like, because we don't acknowledge that there's other dimensions, like other worlds, because we don't acknowledge that and we don't accept it, but they're necessarily there and they're necessarily true. And once you understand this, then you can start to understand the physical world. And the reason that the veil of deceit is here is because the reason that the veil of deceit is here is because of the I don't want to get into like the higher like theological understandings that religions have, but in terms of like just like practicality, right? Like, because this is something that this is something that's important for even an atheist to understand, right? Or an agnostic, right? Or anybody that would be interested in science, or math, or if fucking anything, right? Oh man, I should probably like write this shit out, right? I just want to try to wrap it up in a cohesive statement, if possible. The reason that we have a veil of deceit is because humanity makes an error in assuming only the physical realm. And the reason why is because we are all on our own little missions to, sit in the place of he who is. And like, once you understand this, then you can let go, because you understand that it's wrong and that it's not possible. But if you don't understand this, then deceit like overtakes you in your perception everywhere. And this is the reason why like we have to make theories, because a theory is like an isolated and narrow wrap up of something that's much greater and more rewarding for the mind and for serving humanity. But if your model is like monetary and like a self-devouring system, then it's like you have to defend yourself from it constantly. And so you will take the leverage that you can gain from isolating the theory and attributing it to yourself, and or to science, or to like anything else other than what it's actually attributed to, right? And when you do this, it affects your perception, so that you are unable to detect like the reality of actuality. And I'll leave it at that, because it's a difficult concept to talk about, and I'm not going to do it justice if I'm not, I'm not going to do it justice, period. But so that's going to be the stream for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and yeah, no problem, guys. No problem. Yeah, we'll go back on it later. We're kind of like early on that, right? Like, we're not really there yet. So, okay, have a good night, guys. Thank you for watching. I love you.